you are the type of person who is calling in an overflow but refuses to check their bank account, there's a misalignment in energy there. So if you are also the person that's calling in more overflow but like hyper fixated and like has to cling and hold on to, or kind of sways between the two, right? It's really important that we rebuild that relationship so that you can embody the energy, the nervous system of the person that can hold it when it comes in, because it's one thing to ask, it's another thing to receive. Welcome to the Jamie C Show. Today's episode is for all of those who are desiring more wealth overflow. I'm having an incredible conversation with my co-coach, Brigitte, and we are going to be diving into everything wealth thermostat, wealth overflow, and what that means for your nervous system in terms of wealth expansion. Let's get on in it. We're talking about next level wealth expansion for those who are like, I'm ready to expand. I want more overflow, more wealth. I want opportunity, left, right, everywhere in between. But here's the thing. So many people are like, I'm going to have to grind. I'm going to have to work so hard. And there's so much here that we can unpack to be able to allow for the wealth to flow in based off of the nervous system. You know what? I really want to talk about the nervous system. It's my favorite thing.
All roads lead to the nervous system.
All roads, all money roads lead to the nervous system.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's dive into the nervous system. How come money in general always comes back to the nervous system when we're looking to elevate to overflow?
Well, I think it's this ability. The nervous system is your body being able to communicate whether or not it's safe, right? And so you have all of these alarms that will go off if there's a perceived danger or something that feels unsafe. And a lot of times it can simply be something that's different. So anybody who's expanding to the next level of income, impact, whatever, you're automatically stepping out of that familiar zone, out of that comfort zone, and the nervous system is going to start to use its many different ways to either pump the brakes or sound an alarm, because it's just different equals unsafe. And its primary concern at all times is safety. It doesn't care if you're happy, it doesn't care if you're rich, it doesn't care if you're well-resourced. It just wants to be able to predict safety based on your experiences in the past and keeping you in that same space.
So for those who are like, okay, well, what does money have to do anything with nervous system? Let's give like a 101 on nervous system of like how it actually shows up in the body when you are regulated versus when you're not regulated. So like when the body feels safe versus when it doesn't feel safe. How can that show up?
So anytime you're able to be in the safety and security, it's kind of this ventral vagal nervous system state where you're connected, you're calm, you're well-resourced, you're flowy, your body's relaxed.
In coherence.
Your energy's coherent, right? And you're able to just be really present and allow things to come in. You're able to receive blessings. You're able to receive monetary expansion. You're able to receive the resources and hold them. And it feels safe because you're already in this space of safety, right? You're already in the space of like, I have enough and I'm ready for more. And when you're in more of a survival state, a more nervous system survival space, that more can actually trigger a stress response.
So calling in more wealth.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So stepping out of the familiar zone, stepping into the unknown, calling in more, it's going to literally just sounds the alarm of like, this is different. I've never had this experience before. So even though the conscious mind is like, this is what I want, the body,
money, more
bring
money, bring it in. The body's like, wow.
Yeah. The body and the nervous system, which is more closely linked to the subconscious mind, is like, hey, I need to pump the brakes here, or I need to trigger, a freeze response, slow it down, or a flight response, run away from it, right? And it's going to use these different responses to get you to basically shrink back into the known.
Mm-hmm. I would love to dive into, because a lot of times what we don't recognize is, again, this is all the work that we do inside of our Container Currency Academy, opening up wealth expansion, nervous system, subconscious work, rebuilding your relationship with wealth, receiving money, all the things.
So good.
But I know it's the best thing ever.
It's the best.
It's the best thing ever. There's a lot that is tied unconsciously to behavior, because oftentimes we talk about the subconscious and the nervous system, they're directly linked. And a lot of times what ends up happening, we have these little sneaky behaviors that show up unconsciously that we often will attribute to, oh, it's just kind of like the way I am. just happens. There's something wrong with me. I do this all the time, right? But we don't even realize that the behavior is actually directly linked to the nervous system response of saying the body doesn't feel safe with more. Can you share a couple that you have seen historically with our clients that would either be like under the category of nervous system freeze or nervous system fawn? Let's start with those two.
Yeah, absolutely. So freeze shows up a lot because it's basically your body's just shutting it down, right? So you're starting to expand, you're getting momentum, things are popping off, you've been showing up consistently, and you start to get too far out of that familiar zone. And next thing you know, you stop showing up, you stop posting.
You get really tired.
You
a
get
lot of times.
exhausted because
The tired one is interesting.
it's like pulling the plug on your energy, right?
It's like,
So it's like
unplug you.
shut it down. Manual force shut it down. And then you think like, oh, I was doing so well and everything was going, and then all of a sudden I stopped, right? And it's like this cycle that happens where it's more of a stop-start cycle. Like you're moving forward, you're having momentum, and then next thing you know, bam, everything freezes.
And the interesting thing about this one is that often when you're unaware of that nervous system response, you attribute it to, I can't stay consistent. So you get nervous of trying again or doing things again because I'm just going to get into this loop of feeling tired again, and I'm not going to have the energy to keep going. And there's this like you kind of lose the self-trust, which is why understanding these behaviors when it comes to wealth expansion and nervous system is so important.
And to that point, I always like to say it's not you, it's your nervous system, because it's so important to understand that, these behaviors are coming up in an effort for your body to seek safety and security. And it's not, oh, I'm a failure. Oh, I can't show up and do these things, or I can't be consistent, right? We start to develop these secondary limiting identity beliefs that just make everything harder because we're sort of blaming ourselves for something that's just biology. And when you start to understand that biology and you start to understand how it works, you can get to this place where it's working for you instead of against you.
Yes, it's amazing. And I think that oftentimes this shows up a lot of times with like bigger launches or rapid expansion with wealth. All of a sudden you have this big overflow, and then you have the rubber band effect where it's like the nervous system's like, oh, this is what we consciously have called in, but we don't feel safe in the integration of this is actually who we are and we can hold this. This feels too unfamiliar. You see this often with, lottery winners, all of the things where it's just like all of it comes in and it's like, I can't hold it. And we try to like unconsciously try to get back down. So when we are kind of like reaching that top of our wealth container or moving to a space where we've kind of gone past this subconscious set point or nervous system set point, that's kind of when those things can arise. So in terms of fawn responses, how does that potentially show up behaviorally?
Fawn generally, right, from a nervous system lens, is you are laying down and playing dead, right? So that the danger can walk past you. So it's sort of this collapse energy. It's a lot like freeze, where we're just collapsing and we're just hoping that the stimulus moves on by, or the thing that we're afraid of moves on by. So that's going to really just, it sucks the energy out of you.
Yeah.
It's that same, that shutdown energy where you have this momentum, you're moving, you're clicking, everything's grooving. And then next thing you know, it's like, I'm just going to lay down and stop showing up. I'm going to stop doing all the things that were working.
Well, how would someone be able to decipher whether they're in fawn or freeze?
So fawn and freeze are similar in that they're both more on the shutdown end of the nervous system spectrum. So freeze feels very uncomfortable. It's kind of like the gas and the brake at the same time. So there's activation energy, but there's also this like shut it down energy. So a lot of times you'll feel kind of wired but frozen and stuck at the same time. So you're anxious about something, you want to do the thing, but you physically are unable to do
There's
it.
Probably a lot of the loop in the brain.
A lot of brain
having
loops.
a lot of internal dialogue happening.
Yeah, so you want to do the thing, but you physically can't do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then fawn is more of this, like, you're just kind of exiting the chat energy. Like, you're just kind of like,
Control,
okay.
Alt, Delete.
Yeah, right? And so it's subtle difference, but, it's just a little bit of a different energy there. One of my favorite things that you talk about is the wealth thermostat. And I think that the nervous system is how that plays out, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I always like to think about a thermostat very much like if you always have your house set to 70, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I consciously desire to have something else. I want to have this in the room, or I want to have this temperature. And then all of a sudden it's like okay, no, we're programmed to this. Like, it's kind of like when my husband Nick will come in there and be like, stop touching the thermometer. Don't touch the thermostat. Don't touch the thermostat. Don't touch it. Or like, it'll be like a little colder in the room. It'll be like, did you touch the thermostat? And I'm like, I did. It was very hot in here. But essentially the thermostat is like, it's this set point in the body that where it's just, it feels comfortable, it feels safe, but it's so much unconscious. You're not really truly aware of it until you're like, oh, this feels uncomfy. So for example, it's really interesting because a lot of our clients, we attract a lot of the visionaries, a lot of the dreamers, a lot of those who desire a lot of change, the lineage makers or lineage changers rather. And they come in, they're like, I want to make 100K months. You know, someone who was just in my DMs yesterday who's like, I'm currently making 50K months, but I want to make 4 million a year. Okay. So what we're going to navigate in that expansion is elevating that set point because we're going to reach the top of it, and that's going to show up behaviorally. It's going to show up in the way that you move. It's going to be in the way that you think. And then all of a sudden, once you kind of get to that place where it's like, no, this is what you desire from your prefrontal cortex and what the subconscious and the body feels safe with are two different things. So when we get past the point of this set point or this temperature gauge, right? Then what ends up happening is the nervous system shut down, the thought loops, the procrastination, or you can even find yourself in the hyper hustle and you try to bypass the discomfort and just grind and grind and grind and grind and grind, and you don't really care for yourself in that process. So the work that we do is so beautiful because we really expand, or even we can touch the thermostat, we can access it pretty quickly, understand like right where it starts to feel a little in the body, that's usually a telltale sign. And then what we would need to be doing to be able to elevate to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's going to show up in the body. And that's
Always.
where I think you have this idea of, okay, I want more. I'm calling in more. I'm taking the action towards more. But then when it starts to get to this point where the identity and the self-concept is outside of the scope of something that you feel safe with or that you've previously known, that's when the nervous system alarms will start to go off, right?
Yeah,
And you
like
have
to think about it like a fire alarm.
exactly like that,
It's like
right?
kinda,
It's like, look out, watch out, here we go. And that's where the different responses show up, the fight, freeze, fawn. And that's where, again, you have this identity of like, okay, I just can't be consistent, or I can't show up the way that I want to show up. And it's not that. It's the doing the deep identity work of what that next level of your wealth expression, what that looks like, and being able to step into that while also creating safety in the body and while also being able to, step by step regulate to that next level.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing that we can offer as like a set point to understand is like if you look at like the last maybe 6 months of the amount of like average revenue or average money that you've brought in, right? And then being able to look at where you kind of end up with the bank account, right? And that usually will give you like, okay, especially this is specifically for the people who have like the open-ended revenue type of situation. So if you're like working like a 9 to 5, you have predictable revenue. This, I would say more of the spending would be a place to look at in terms of like the wealth container. Not to say that there's, when we're thinking about increasing revenue or increasing wealth flow, even when you have a 9 to 5, there's opportunity everywhere to do that. So, but if you have a predictable revenue stream right now, you're kind of making the same amount all the time. So you want to look at the wealth container in terms of the spending and also how you feel when you look at
Absolutely.
money, right? That's a whole nother conversation that we'll get into. But then for those who are, they have their own companies and they're the ones in charge of the amount of revenue that they're bringing in, you want to look at that kind of average over the last 6 months. Like, what have you brought in? What ends up being like, is there a baseline number that you generally will end up at within the bank account and things of that nature? That kind of gives you an idea of like where the body feels comfortable subconsciously, not consciously, because you can desire having a lot more. For example, if you are, let's just say, an entrepreneur who brings in 5K months, you could be desiring 20K, right? And taking all the actions and doing all the things and hustling and grinding against your baseline or temperature gauge. But if the body feels comfortable and predictable at 5K and you haven't regulated to the 20K, energetic space, you'll most likely take all the actions and kind of grind out until you still end up down there.
Yeah.
The spending is also really interesting.
Oh yeah.
You want to tap into that?
Unconscious. Yeah, I think it's just this unconscious thing that it's, the spending is a part, it's like the air conditioner coming on, right? So it's like you have the set thermostat, which is, this is what I'm comfortable with. This is what my identity, this is who I identify as, and I've regulated to this being a safe zone of the let's use the 5K month example. You've regulated to that space and that feels safe. But when you start to go beyond that, you turn it up to, you turn it down to 70, 68 or whatever, the air conditioner kicks on, and that's when it starts to change, to go back. So the unconscious spending becomes like, the air conditioner kicking on to bring you back up to that 70, to that set point.
Yes.
And it happens below the conscious awareness. So the trick is to kind of catch it in the moment in real time, which most of our rewiring work we do in real time using awareness coupled with, intentional change to shift bit by bit. So in real time, you're going to notice, oh, this money is just kind of going out as quickly as it's coming in. And when you have that awareness of any time that you're, circulating money, which is an important part of wealth consciousness, but just having a lot of awareness around that. And like, what is the energy? How am I circulating this? Is it from is there some sort of pressure or urgency in the body? Because a lot of times that can be an indicating factor that there's a subconscious need to just get it out and get you right back to that comfort zone that your identity has regulated to. And, a lot of times this happens so fast because we're not always really conscious of every decision that we're making. So what we do is we invite the awareness and the presence so that you can notice, oh, hey, I just did that thing where I just had a 10K month and I spent 12K, right? And I just signed up for this new thing, or I just did this, or I just bought this thing. And not that that's right or wrong or anywhere in between, because we're observing this from a place of non-judgment. We're just noticing it with curiosity. And it's like, oh, okay, is this in alignment with the person that I'm becoming?
Right.
Or does this next version of me hold more?
Yeah, because, we talk to our clients when they onboard, right? When they're coming in. And essentially, it's like, I feel uncomfortable with having more than X amount in my bank account. And then we have the complete opposite, where there's dysregulation in the fact that I used to have so much, and now I'm so scared to look at that because I'm afraid that it's going to end up getting back down. Like, I'm going to make money and then it's going to go away. And then we also have the other side of that as well, is like, no, I can visualize like there's 6 figures in my bank account. All is well, in Overflow, swipe and no worry. Now it's just being able to embody the person that can do that. Like, I can visualize it, there's no resistance. So I think that there is, in terms of the nervous system again is the familiar zone. It wants baseline safety all the time. So when you are creating a space of becoming the wealthiest version of yourself, the nervous system is so important, because as humans, it gives us so much awareness of where our baseline is, where our thermostat is. And if you want to expand the thermostat, then there's intentional work that needs to be done. So what would you say would be the first thing that someone would want to pay attention to when they are, number one, having the desire to call in more overflow, and the thing to make awareness around when it comes to the body?
I think it's getting used to having awareness and presence with what the body is doing, because the body is always going to communicate that to you. And sometimes it's sort of this mental spiral. Sometimes it's an inner monologue. But a lot of times there's going to be a tightness, a stickiness, a sensation in the belly, a holding of the breath, like the clutching, tightness in the throat, right? This sort of like bracing energy, or this feeling of like hotness and urgency, so it's becoming really aware of the different sensations that we're having, specifically when you're dealing in the wealth area, right? So if you're looking at your bank account, if you're, having a financing meeting, there's different ways that this shows up. And one of the things that we do is you put yourself in the driver's seat and you create the feelings that you want to have around it. So I love when you talk about, money dates, and when people, I'll have you talk about the money dates because I feel like you do that so well. But It's really carving out this intentional space to be like, okay, I'm going to be brave. I'm going to look at it and I'm going to curate this really like romantic, beautiful energy while I'm specifically looking at my finances. And that starts to rewire. Maybe you have a fear response. Maybe you had a flight response and you've been avoiding it. Maybe you have a freeze response and you're just like, I just can't, right? You sign in and you just sign right out because you totally freeze and start to check out. And so I think that, when you start to be able to have the awareness and then bring in the desired energy, bring in the desired emotion, sensations, that's how you start to rewrite those things.
Yeah. I think when you are being more intentional, we do talk about the fact that a lot of times the way you show up with like your attachment style has a lot to do what you're essentially what you are in relationship with one thing, you are generally in relationship to all things, right? So if you have an avoidant attachment style, if you have an anxious attachment style, so like avoidant and anxious, like anxious is maybe like checking the account more often, right? Like always making sure, right? And the opposite of that is the avoidant, like I don't want to check it, right? You're trying to protect yourself from a perceived emotion or feeling some way about yourself or about the thing, and like trying to protect your body from experiencing something. So I think just self inquiry is really, really important when you're like, hey, when I'm moving forward in my life and I want to create more overflow, you have to think about it. If you are the type of person who is calling in an overflow but refuses to check their bank account, there's a misalignment in energy there. So if you are also the person that's calling in more overflow but like hyper fixated and like has to cling and hold on to or kind of sways between the two, right? It's really important that we rebuild that relationship so that you can embody the energy, the nervous system of the person that can hold it when it comes in, because it's one thing to ask, it's another thing to receive. It's one thing to ask for all the overflow. You can get it, right? But then when it lands here, are we like gripping, holding, afraid that it's going to leave, afraid that you feel more nervous with it or to spend it? So it's about rebuilding the relationship with money itself, you with money, the somatic memory around that, and then also being able to kind of the asking, feeling worthy of the asking, and then being able to have the openness and faith and trust and being able to receive, hold, and circulate it. Because it's sometimes when when it comes in and then we're like, it's never leaving. And money doesn't like to be stagnant. That's the energy of money. It likes to circulate, it likes to move, right? I want to recap and then I want to share a nervous system regulation tool that Brigitte will share. When you are leaning into understanding the nervous system and you are able to call in more, you're able to call in everything that you desire, and you are very clear about the overflow that you desire. You want to make sure that number one, that you're having as much awareness as possible around how your body is communicating with you, because it's going to communicate. It's got a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom happening here. And then being able to kind of go through, do body scans, understand where maybe you feel a little bit of energy, kind of stuck heaviness. And then we're going to go into some nervous system regulation tools for you as well.
Geez, there's so many. If I could just do one, it would be learn how to relax. Learn how to relax your body. There are places where when we're showing up with tension or we're contracting, right? And we talked earlier about how those sensations show up. When you can be present with them, and I really like to add a sprinkle of curiosity anytime we're talking about awareness and presence with sensations that might be uncomfortable. It can be really supportive to come from the energy of, I'm not judging this. I'm not saying this is right or wrong or good or bad. I'm just entering into this observation, this witnessing of my physical experience through the lens of, wow, this is so interesting. What can I learn from this? Right? And then once we've allowed those sensations to be witnessed, I like to move into an intentional relaxation. So if you are able to physically relax your physical body in the presence of the stressor, the stimulus, the growth, the expansion, the more money, the overflow. Because what happens is the overflow comes in, there's some kind of tension, physical stress in the body, and then we want to like expunge, we want to release that stress. So maybe we're spending, maybe we're reacting in some kind of way that's getting us back into that thermostat. So if you can be in the presence of the stressor, which is the overflow or the change, and physically relax your body, relax your vessel, deep breaths, deep belly breaths. Drop the shoulders, release the tension, and you can actually create safety in the body that's going to communicate up to the mind, hey, this is okay. And if you do that enough times, that alone will start to regulate you into this next level of expansion. You can kind of bypass a lot of even the mental gymnastics that people do by just going straight to the body and straight into relaxation.
Yeah, that's so good. And it's honestly, it's that probably one of the most simple but effective ways of being able to breath, closing the eyes, drop into the body, recognizing that there is something that this is all right. We're okay.
We're okay. That gentle self-talk.
We're okay. This is all right. I'm not making this mean anything about me. Everything is okay. Right? You do that enough, it becomes a practice of being able to come back to baseline pretty quickly. And also, being able to signal to the body that, hey, we're good.
We're okay, right? Orienting is another one where we're just noticing our immediate, because the body thinks that we're in danger, right? And so we're having a physical response to a mental stimulus. But if you're able to really take in your surroundings with awareness, you're able to see like, oh, wow, there actually is no danger. This actually is just all these things that are going on in my mind. And I'm able to look and see like, oh, I'm in my living room. There's no imminent threat. Everything's okay. Deep breaths, using the breath to signal that safety to the body. Unwind, unclench, relax. I like a hand on the heart, a hand on the belly, and create intentional safety through that relaxation over and over and over and over again. Every time it starts to tense and tighten, we do the opposite.
Boom.
Boom.
Train the body.
Yeah, and then you let it flow, and that's going to affect your receivership. That's going to affect your ability to flow. That's going to lessen the likelihood of you like compulsively spending to release that pressure. It's going to kind of be this remedy for whatever different ways the stress is showing up.
Yeah, as simple as it sounds, it's probably one of the most intentional things that you can do to be able to, again, the safety in the body is always number one.
Always.
Safety in the body, number one. Again, that's going to allow for you to be able to expand the wealth container.
Yeah.
Right? All good. All good. Thank you so much, Bridge. This was an amazing conversation. And again, this is exactly what we do inside of our Container Currency Academy. And if you are looking to extend this knowledge a bit more, looking to dive deeper, be able to be as well-resourced as possible to bring your financial dreams to reality, we have many resources in the show notes for you to be able to dive into and get started immediately. Thank you again, and we'll see you in the next episode.